England, people would have understood that the manipulative and deceptive power of Nazi propaganda. But Sayers wanted to warn that it wasn't just those really glaring and obvious cases where there was a risk. And so she made an analogy between language and scientific experiments. And this is what she wrote. It is as dangerous for people unaccustomed to handling words and unacquainted with their technique to tinker about with these heavily charged nuclei of emotional power as it would be for me to burst into a laboratory and play about with a powerful electromagnet or other machine highly charged with electrical force. At the present time, we have a population that is literate in the sense that everyone is able to read and write, but owing to the emphasis placed on scientific and technical training at the expense of the humanities, very few of our people have been taught to understand and handle language as an instrument of power. This means that in England alone, 40 million innocents or thereabouts are wandering inquisitively around the laboratory, enthusiastically pulling handles and pushing buttons, thereby releasing uncontrollable currents of electric speech, with results that astonish themselves and the world. Now, this kind of innocent ignorance is dangerous enough to our life together, Sayers warned, but of course not everyone is so innocent, right? She points to the demagogues who can sway crowds, the journalist who can push up the sales of his paper to the 2 million mark, the playwright who can plunge an audience into an orgy of facile emotion, the parliamentary candidate who is carried to the top of the poll on a flood of meaningless rhetoric, the ranting preacher, and the advertising salesman of material or spiritual commodities. And we could expand that list from Sayers quite a bit today, I think. We could add the cable news pundit who browbeats his guest and calls it debate. We could add the Instagram influencer who serves very pretty half-truths to millions of followers, the podcaster whose voice is inside your head every night while you wash the dishes and every morning while you exercise, the public pseudo-intellectual on Twitter who passes off glib little quips as truth. And unlike the innocents in Sayers' laboratory, these people know exactly how powerful language is, and they use it for power, fame, agenda, and profit against, in Sayers' phrase, people who were not armed to resist it and had never really understood that it was a weapon at all. But here's where our situation, I think, is even worse. So in Sayers' time, in the 1940s, the verbally unscrupulous, however powerful, were relatively few in number and comparatively limited in the technology they could use to spread their messages. Here in the United States, it wasn't until the mid-50s that even half of American homes had a TV. And it would be decades more after that before you got 24-hour TV programming, let alone the constant flow of information and truth claims that the internet provides and that we all carry around in our pockets all the time. But it's not just the flow of information coming to us at such an increased pace. What social media does is it invites all of us, the entire public, to play pundit or influencer or politician. We all get to be the speaker, not just the audience. And that means where Sayers could make that little list and point to it and say, here are some categories of people you should watch out for because they understand the power of language in a way you probably don't. Now, at any moment, anyone in our acquaintance can play the demagogue or the playwright or the pseudo-intellectual in our news feeds. We can all wield language as a weapon against each other. We can all talk in public with too little understanding and too much speed. There's no respite and there's no silence. It can come at you at any moment. Everyone has a platform to start talking about the world without, as Sayers put it, first developing a wary determination to understand the potentialities of language and to use it with resolution and skill. And so what I would argue is that responsible and humane use of language in public. As a listener, yes, but especially as a speaker, and we're now pretty much all both, that's not a skill you're born knowing. It is also not something we are all taught. Being able to read and write and post on Facebook makes us literate, but it doesn't mean we understand how to use language in public well.